Welcome everyone to Agile Talks by Agile Gurus. I'm your host Rahul Kataria. And today on our show we have Anand Francis. He's one of our coaches, been with Agile Gurus for almost about 2 years and has been in Agile industries for more than a decade. And today we are going to talk about product leaders and successful transformation. So thank you, Anand, for joining us today. So without further ado, Anand, where do you find product owners? Who are product owners? And do you just keep hiring new people and make them product owners? Or do you help people who have been in different roles in your organization and try to develop them into product owners?
That's a great question. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So, one of the things that I'm personally very passionate about is the role of product professionals in an organization's overall agility. So, a lot of times, there's a lot of effort to hire developers, testers, a lot of designers, and sort of the doers of the work. And sometimes there's an oversight. People tend to miss the importance of product people and product professionals. So, before I answer Raul's question, where do you find them? I think we have to all agree that a product person or product professional is actually a brand new and a completely different job family that requires a new and almost completely separate job skills than what we have already seen in our companies, like project managers, process engineers, and others. So, first, we have to realize that product is a completely new discipline that has some very specifically new skills. And we'll go about what those skills are in a second, but we have to agree on that that doesn't currently exist in a waterfall environment, and that we have to cultivate it and we have to bring it out. So that's one. And so, where do you find product owners? Product owners are probably the hardest role to fill in an agile organization, in my opinion, because a product person, we're going to go deeper into that, but a product person typically is about 30% business person who understands the way you make money, your revenue. How is it that you stay in business? So the person has a very good understanding of that. So 30% of their sort of knowledge base is in your core business competencies and skills. Another 30% is they are a customer expert. So they really have to know who your customers are, and they are naturally inclined, naturally to be very inquisitive. They are sort of very data driven people, and so they're naturally always researching and understanding customer needs. And it really is doesn't matter what product you're building, whether internal facing, external facing, completely tech product. It really doesn't matter. But a good product person is a customer expert, or is at least trying to be a customer expert every day in their job. And the last 40% is they are very skilled in saying no. I know I gave a large percent for that because part of a product professional's job, and it doesn't matter what level you are, you will be saying no to a lot of people that want things from you. So that prioritization is my way of saying no. Is that you have to be an expert at prioritization. So, and then there are various skills that are attached with that. So a product person is a skilled prioritizer, a skilled product, a customer expert, and a passionate business expert who understands how you make money. So to bring these three skill sets together, you have to be very, have to be particular, and you have to have. It has to be by design. You just cannot. It won't happen automatically. So it has to be very skilled and strategic for this to happen. And so, where do you find people like that? They're not in the wild. You cannot hire an entire product organization. That's just not possible. You have to cultivate more than 50% of your people from inside the company, and you have to bring another 30 to 40% from the outside for the standards and the tools and the sort of the generic skill sets. But you cannot hire product people just purely from the outside, and you also cannot just try to convert product people purely from the inside. It has to be a healthy mix, and you have to be very, very strategic with it. I'm talking to people like myself who are leading or have helped lead agile transformations, and that this resonates with you.
In your experience, when you were starting with the transformation, for example, with any organization, is it a good step to start from inside first? Or
That's a great question. So contextually, there's a little bit of context here. So whenever you start a transformation, you have to have a very compelling why statement, right?
right,
So if you have an organization that says we need to start transforming into an agile organization, as a coach, as sort of the change agent, lead change agent, there, you have to really get to the kind of the root of why. And mostly, it's not. Typically, it's not a very difficult why. It could be something as simple as speed or quality, or it's just to have a better environment so you can attract better talent. Whatever that why is, you have to really crystallize that why. Once you have that, then you can make the decision to what Rahul's question of, do you grow internally or do you hire from the outside? Now, if you have a massive deadline, you're trying to re-platform your core business components, and you feel like everything is kind of falling apart and you need an agile transformation to speed up at the same time improve, then in that scenario you would hire a lead product person from the outside who can come in and ask all the tough questions and who can mentor and create new product people from within, right? But if you have a slower sort of a 3-year plan to transformation and your company is already sort of a fast-paced change, a company that enjoys change, then you could get away with just hiring a few product coaches and agile transformation coaches and give them a mandate to create some good strategic training plans. SAFE is a good place to start. They have a good set of curriculum, but you have to start with a strategic roadmap of how you're going to train, and then validate that they are being trained well, and then move forward that way.
our next question: how do you define a product owner in an organization? Which you kind of already answered along with it. Do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah. So, how do you define a product person is a very good way of looking at the paradigm, right? Because a lot of times companies do not necessarily know what they mean by we want an agile transformation, right? And so, as as transformation folks, we have to be very clear, and we have to be honest with ourselves to say, look, I really don't know what they're trying to achieve. And I always encourage my peers to be honest to say, do you really know why they're asking for this transformation? So even the best transformation patterns apply to the best intending companies, but if their whys don't align, it'll be a failure, right? And so you have to ask yourself the why. And so in that why is the definition of that product person, right? And a lot of companies, a lot of my peers, when we talk to them, a lot of them are frustrated because they're trying to bring an agile transformation in their own mind. They have a certain plan and a model, but their business or their clients seem to want just a really, really a well-oiled waterfall setup. They want the same organizational structures, they want the same controls as waterfall, but they want better quality, fat, and better communication, right? In some ways, not to judge, in some ways that is an agile transformation as well. So all I would say is, if you're transforming an organization, don't try to transform them overnight. So if they just want to be a slightly better waterfall organization in the next 3 to 6 months, let them, guide them to that spot, and then and that definition of a product person will be a little different, but then have an end goal and slowly coach them to that new definition of product person. But the who is a product person? Is a product professional, in my opinion, is somebody who builds just enough and delights the customer and keeps doing it over and over again in really, really short cycles at whatever level. at a managing VP over 1,000 people, you still do that same exact thing. Small changes, validate, go back, and create more small changes, and it filters down.
Um, okay, so we talked about product person. We keep saying product person, right? And then in agile world, we have heard all these terms: product owners, product managers.
Right.
What are some different types of product owners or product people in an organization?
That's a great question, and one of my favorite mentors who I've never met or spoken to is Roman Pichler. And I was introduced to Roman's work by another mentor of mine, and I've read all his books. And he's kind of one of the few people that I really agree with in a lot of the product philosophies. And so, very recently, about a couple of weeks ago, Roman had written this blog that I caught on LinkedIn, where he kind of talks about the 6 different kinds of product owners, right? And so I would highly recommend that you try and find it. We'll link it at the end of this. Hopefully, Rahul, that we could link that article at the end of it. And so this got me thinking. And he has his own definitions, but so types of product people are, there's the product person or the product owner who lives and breathes the product itself, like the service that you're building or the small product that you're building at the team level. Then there's a product manager who basically is a people manager for a lot of product owners, but owns the entire suite of products, right? So that person gets to set the strategy for the entire product, how the revenue is going to go, what kind of features should come first, second, and then within that, you'll have smaller teams working on those specific features. So you have the product owner at the team level across the product for that particular product. Then you have a product manager who manages multiple such product owners for the entire product suite. And this is familiar with us. We all know this. But there's, when you actually start to scale, there's even more complexities that start showing up. And then one of such product professional that we really need is a platform product person. In different companies call it different things. And so a platform owner or a platform engineer, in some companies we just call them a platform lead. But this person also needs to have a product mentality, meaning they also should be thinking in small batches, continuous iterations to improve. And this person, this product lead person or product engineer person, is typically from the engineering side and not a typical product business person, right? And so if this person thinks in a waterfall way, right? If they have like an 18-month plan to refactor the platform, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a product owner and a product manager above who are trying to iterate quickly on this platform to serve customers, you're going to have major clashes because their roadmaps won't align. This person is going to say, we're not making any changes on the UI. For example, let's say they're going from AngularJS to Node.js or something like that, right? They're making a big upgrade. He's going to say he or she is going to say all UX changes are basically shut down for the next 90 days. We're working on the upgrade. Versus the product person is like, look, I don't have a whole 90 days that I can just not make changes. Like I have customer feedback I'm trying to react to over here, right? So that's where we're seeing a lot of those clashes. So then you have those kinds of product people, right? Then you have people who own a group of features, right? Like because most companies, larger companies in general, don't have a great product management setup because we don't have products. We actually have suites of products. And a lot of times they're sliced vertically. For example, a very common delineation is single sign-on, even though it's a central pipeline for everybody to come in. So one group or like in one leader, she will be in charge of that feature of single sign-on, right? Keeping it up, maintaining it, refactoring it, keeping it like, cyber compliant and all of that. Everybody has to use that feature to get into their app. So this person has to also think in terms of iterative improvement and not, on-off waterfall method, right? So a lot of companies, and larger they are, the harder it is to organize is that they have these capability leads over time. Like payment is a capability, single sign-on is a capability, push notifications to mobile is a capability, email. There's an email engine that's sitting out there that everybody uses for messaging. So all these are capabilities, but value flows across the capabilities, right? Like, so one person, even though you have a product manager, they don't really have control over their destiny because they need the support of all these people
That's
to
right.
get a single change out the door, right? And so this is what I'm seeing in a majority of organizations is this dichotomy of behaviors. One group is still, this is my platform, I'm trying to keep it up. Their success is keeping it up. And then you have this other group, their whole, reason for living is iterating, building fast, and moving on, right? And then their visions don't align, their missions don't align, and that's where we have a lot of problems.
The situation that you just described, I think it's a lot of people have been facing that. I have seen teams facing that. It becomes silos for different product leads or product people. What would be your advice? How can they deal with it in a better way?
Well, first you got to hire agile gurus if you want to advance. No, I kid. But see, there is, unfortunately, there is no silver bullet for this, right? So as you have to coach your CIOs, your CEOs, and you have to kind of come back to that very simple question of why, right? So we have to crystallize the transformation. We have to wrap some very clear objectives for the transformation. Like, for example, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the Hello World code that people release, right? So like the simplest code to get compiled and sent out. So if you were if you're a CIO of an organization, then you should actually challenge your organization to say, what would it take for me to just literally go in and comment out a hello world into our core code and get it out to production today? What's the cycle time for that? What would be the cycle time for any developer to be able to do that without somebody else holding them up, right? And you have to kind of say, okay, what can we do architecturally, culturally, the way we hire, the way we work, our infrastructure, the way we, the way we articulate our priorities. What is it? What do we have to change in all of these facets of the way we do things to get that hello world out in 5 seconds, in 3 seconds, right? Yeah. And then you almost have to rebuild the way you completely understand the customer, react to that change, budget, and everything. So the answer is it's a multifaceted approach, but at the core of it, you have to really crystallize the problem statement, and you have to really crystallize the why are we transforming. If the answer is we're transforming because we want to be the best or something like that, and I always shy away from those kinds of statements because they really don't mean anything. Are you going to measure the best, or are you going to hold back dollars if people are not the best? So my thing is, let's be realistic and let's come up with some proper goals that you can measure, right? Like cycle time. I want to be able to make a code change in 3 seconds and have it in production. Now that's an objective that can be measured, and now everybody can rally around it. Test right. Automation becomes just the need. An automation test framework just becomes, just the need at that point, right? Instead of saying something over here and then forcing people to use a test automation framework, just feels like you're kind of forcing that change as opposed to drawing them to this higher place.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm going in a little bit of a tangent here.
Okay.
You're talking about a lot about. I think it's more about a mind shift and a culture. Adapting to this new mind shift, I guess. Mm-hmm. Do you think a lot of this responsibility for this agile transformation falls on the shoulders of the leadership or management?
Not a lot. I think all of it falls on the leadership, right? And I say that fully realizing that they have extremely difficult jobs, right?
Right.
And another thing is that as a change agent, I always assume positive intent. That I believe that they have taken the decisions that they have taken in the past that has brought us to this point of success, based on all these great decisions they've made to lead us up to this point. And I truly believe that they will take better decisions going forward and lead us to another great point. So just because you can see something in a different paradigm does not mean that they did it, that they're unwilling to change, or they don't understand the paradigm. So as I'll just talk about it from a change agent perspective. From a change agent perspective, your responsibility is to first and foremost understand your customer's point of view. You need to have a lot of empathy to understand how they got there and what was the underlying hypothesis that got them there, right? You really have to understand that. Then, very carefully and respectfully, you have to negotiate new hypotheses with them and then help them start from wherever they are to make that move. And then if you're honest with them, the leaders will buy into your way of thinking, and they will come in. What the best thing you can do as a change agent is be honest, right? And please do not go in with your mind made up. That's the worst thing you can do, and say you
Yep.
need a PI planning, you need to be 10 weeks, you need train with 8 teams. Please don't do that. You're doing yourself a great disservice, and the rest of us a great disservice, because when you go in with the prepackaged solution, it just doesn't work, and you're going to lose a lot of credibility coming out of the gate.